Searchlight. I want to begin this program the same way we have for some months now by giving a quick overview of how COVID-19 is impacting people in prisons and jails. There are currently 222,305 confirmed cases of incarcerated people with COVID-19. In total, 1,440 incarcerated people have died from the virus. That data comes to us from the UCLA Law COVID-19 Behind Bars Data Project. A little background about Eastern State. The penitentiary was built in 1829 on a cherry orchard just outside of Philadelphia. It is perhaps best known for its architecture, which is radial in design and has been replicated hundreds of times internationally. Eastern State was founded on a singular principle, that being that rehabilitation for people in prison was only possible through solitary confinement. And that idea was tested on tens of thousands of men, women, and children for over 80 years, until 1913, when Eastern State abandoned solitary confinement in favor of a more congregate arrangement. Eastern State Penitentiary closed in 1971 and sat abandoned for about 2 decades until it became a historic site and museum. Today, Eastern State is dedicated to interpreting the history of American criminal justice reform. And to do that, Eastern State built a 15-foot tall bar graph on the prison's baseball field. We call it the Big Graph. And the Big Graph does 3 things. It shows the US rate of incarceration over time. It shows the US rate of incarceration compared to every other nation on earth. And it shows the shameful racial disparities in our criminal justice system. That is that people of color are disproportionately overrepresented in American prisons. The Big Graph has a partner exhibit. It's called Prisons Today, Questions in the Age of Mass Incarceration. And visitors are encouraged to consider their relationship to the criminal justice system. During this time, we've been producing lots of virtual programming, including Prisons in the Pandemic. It's a 3-minute news roundup of how COVID impacts people who are currently incarcerated. Comes out every Friday. It's posted on Facebook. If you have a chance, please check it out. And if you'd like to connect to Eastern State's mission on a deeper level, you should consider becoming a member. Members get access to all kinds of cool things, including some things that the public doesn't have access to, like invitations to Member Saturday. This month's Member Saturday is going to take a look at crafts and games that were made by people who are incarcerated at Eastern State. There's also going to be an awesome hands-on activity to accompany that. If you want to learn more about becoming a member, visit easternstate.org/membership. There's plenty of ways to stay connected with us. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of our handles are listed there. You can also learn more at easternstate.org. You won't want to miss Searchlight next month. We're going to be talking with Ashley Rubin about her upcoming book, The Deviant Prison, Philadelphia's Eastern State Penitentiary and the Origin of America's Penal System, 1829 to 1913. It's not every day that a scholar writes a book about Eastern State, so you want to make sure to tune in on that day, Tuesday, January 5th from 6 to 7. It'll be broadcast on Zoom and Facebook Live. And tonight, we're going to be talking about Walkies. I'm joined with Shuja Moore and Sydia Bagley. Shuja Moore is the creator and executive producer of Walkies, a docuseries showcasing the transformation stories of the formerly incarcerated. After serving 12 years in prison, Shuja returned to his West Philadelphia roots to provide resources for the disadvantaged community he left behind. Shuja hopes to reduce poverty and gun violence by assisting opportunity youth. Those are young people between 16 and 24 who are disconnected from school and work, with home ownership and entrepreneurship. Shuja, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sydia Bagley is the founder and CEO of Lockdown Love, a community-based program aiding returning citizens, helping them strive and find their way. During her incarceration, Sydia graduated from Naugatuck Community College with a degree in business management. Before founding Lockdown Love, Sydia worked with prominent restaurants in Philadelphia and graduated valedictorian of her culinary arts program. Sydia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
Before we jump in, I want to show a clip from the first episode of Walkies. The person that we're about to meet is Damian Bronson. This was recorded only a few days after Damian returned home after spending 25 years in prison. I love this clip because I think it does a great job of representing what Walkies is about and what Walkies tries to accomplish. So this clip is episode 1 of Walkies with Damian Bronson.
After being released from 25 years, my excitement or my feelings was, wow, I did it. I did it. I get this show, that I'm a better man than I was when I came back in. That was my whole goal. I am not a savage.
What a great clip. I want to jump right in. Shuja, tell us about yourself and how you came to create Walkies. Maybe first start with telling us what a walkie is.
Right. I definitely want to answer that question, but I would be remiss if I don't thank two sets of people. First, I want to thank, first I want to thank Eastern Penitentiary for having Sydia and myself. I want to thank my parents who, despite how ugly things got in my personal life, they never gave up on me, always supported me. And lastly, we are here because of the production of Walkies. I represent the face of Walkies, but Walkies is a 4-man team. That's Sean Grasso, Hunter Bartlett, and Keith Lawrence. So although you may see me on screen, you may be in the audience as well, but I represent us 4. So a walkie is a prison term for one of your closest friends, if not your best friend, because in prison, you're often walking together and you're going to walk with your friends to the chow hall, in the yard, to the yard, so that becomes known as your walkie. And we use that as the title for the show because it's we kind of walk the journey or go through the journey that a person makes when they transform themselves.
Awesome. Sydia, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Where are you from? How did you meet Shuja and become connected to Walkies?
Sure. Well, I'm a momtrepreneur. I have a 4-year-old and an 18-year-old. I sell CMOS products. I have Lockdown Love. I'm an activist, a mentor. I met Shuja. I'm from North Philly. I met Shuja through my brother. Him and Shuja were incarcerated together, and he was, huh? Yeah, they were Walkies. I'm sorry, they were Walkies, and Shuja told him what he was trying to do, and short story short, Shuja got my information, contacted me, and I was so. If you talked clearly you talked to Shuja, so I'm pretty sure you were sold on the idea of Walkies. So he's easy to persuade.
Thank you.
So when you were invited, it was kind of
no brainer.
No brainer. Okay. Awesome. Hey, Shu, in episode 1 of Walkies, we meet Damian Bronson 15 days after he came home from 25 years in prison. What was it like to work with him on this project during that moment of his life and that moment in your life?
Wow, that's an important question. First of all, I knew Damian. I was incarcerated with him, so I knew his character, and I was excited to be able to tell. One of the reasons I created Walkies was because I didn't see the community that I was a part of while I was incarcerated portrayed on TV. And that community are the people who really invested in transforming themselves, wanting to be better people. And I wanted to make sure that not only could we represent that, but also use it as a guiding light for people who were currently struggling. So I was excited to tell that story. And, Dane was fully transparent. He wanted to get into it, and I wanted to provide that opportunity. Another reason is, I had a little bit more time home than him. And I remember just that, that anxiousness of coming home and, wanting to connect to the world and wanting to tell your story. So I was honored, and I think my team was honored as well to be able to do that.
Wow, that's great. Hey, Sydia, what made you want to share your story through Walkies? I know you just explained how you got connected to the project, but what made you want to tell your story specifically through Walkies?
Again, like Shu said, I wasn't seeing my story. So I'm a female. I've done 10 years in prison. And coming home, to me, the transition was kind of different because the things that are, the opportunities for women aren't really as prevalent as they are for men. So I've done construction, I've done PennDOT flagger, I've done a forklift operator, and all of these things because these are the programs that's offered because they're used to re-entering men, not women. So these were the only programs that were really around for me. So it's like nobody else really knows the things that the women go through because it's not being told. So I felt the need to tell my story.
That's an incredible answer. I Didn't know that about reentry, but it makes a lot of sense having heard you say it. Now, I know that maintaining a close relationship with your daughter was critical for you during your incarceration. Do you talk about parenting at all during your episode?
Yes, absolutely. It's so important because I've watched so many women and men, actually. A lot of people just give up that aspect, but because it's like it's the I'm not there factor. I refuse to do that. I refuse to. I had a walkie. Her name was Michelle West, and she's doing life in prison. And one of the things she told me is, whatever you do, don't give up parenting. Don't lose your daughter. And it's just like I held that perspective in my mind. So I've done everything from write in the schools every year to meet her teacher. All her interim reports, all her paperwork came to the school. I was sending the self-addressed stamp and envelope just so that they can send me the report to my child. Like, I refuse to not be involved in every aspect of her life, even though I wasn't there physically.
Incredible. I have a follow-up question. What do you think is something that the public should know about parents who are incarcerated or parenting from prison?
I feel like they need to know that you shouldn't strip them of their right, and that you should encourage them to be a parent, because just because you're not there in the physical form, it doesn't define you. It doesn't define your parenting. There's still multiple ways to be able to insert yourself in your child's life and be relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Shuja, I want to go back to episode 1 with Damian Bronson. So you and Damian visit the exact spot where he was before his arrest and incarceration. It's a very powerful moment. You ask Damian, what does this represent for you right now? And he says, quote, it represents the beginning of a new person. That night represented the beginning of the person I am today, end quote. You call this in the episode the activation. Tell us what activation is and why it's important.
It's when you wake up. It's when you the light bulb finally clicks, and it happens for people at different stages of their life. But it's very transformative, and I think that for anybody who has a successful reentry, they will be able to clearly articulate that moment in their life. You know, so if you know somebody who's returned home from prison and they're not able to articulate that, that would be a flag for me, and I would want to push them toward that. You know, but it's a moment when you really realize who you are and what you want out of life, and you work toward that, and you really shed the skin of that past life.
I have a follow-up question, but I want to ask Sydia first. Do you have an activation moment that you'd be comfortable sharing?
My activation moment was when I got off the bus in Center City and none of my family was there. I was so scared to tell them that I was being released, because they tell you that nobody can pick you up unless it's in the plans and all of this stuff, or you'll go back to jail. I literally did not color outside the lines. There were people that came home with me that went to go see their family and come in to 2 days later because there was a 2-day grace period. So I ain't know nothing about none of that. I'm going back to the place where they told me to, because I have to follow other rules. I know if I start bending them, I'm gonna break them. So I knew that I'm gonna follow these rules and do what I have to do to be oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. To be a model person in society and to transform for my child and my family. If I had left that day, if I had called my family that day, I know things would have turned out so much differently for me. I already knew what I wanted. I went there with a plan, and everything I set out to achieve from that day forward, I've executed.
So yeah, it sounds like the activation is really critical and was for you. And I was going to ask if there's a particular moment when you find that folks experience that, but it sounds like it can be before someone's incarceration, during someone's incarceration, after. Is there anything else that either Shu or Sai wanted to say about like activation or that kind of turning the page moment?
I would like to ask Sai, while you were incarcerated, you know, there's certain things we don't want to reveal about the episode just yet, but you know, I want to push you a little bit more on that question. What was that moment inside when you knew, like, oh, I can't go back home, you know, side that was doing what I was doing. I need to return home this way. And when you started to put in that work, and I know you talked about Michelle West and some of the other people around you. Matter of fact, I remember you said in the episode that moment for you was when you had a walkie that actually returned back. She went home and came back, and you were like, whoa. I don't want that to be me.
At all. At all. So what, I'm sorry, I didn't think that far back. I was thinking he was saying like when I came home, because what I know is activation happens at different moments, and it depends on the perspective and what's going on. So like even when I came home and I was working for people, I had a moment where I quit both of my jobs in one day. I literally went from one job and went to the next job and was like, yeah, this is not gonna work. This one not gonna work. And I started my own business. So activation definitely happens at different times. So in incarceration, I definitely had the mindset, what even triggered the mindset to go straight to the halfway house and all of that was definitely because that revolving door. When you see people come back and they want to high five, and I had a friend who was very dear to me that it broke my heart to see come back through that door. So yes, absolutely, that was definitely an activation moment because I knew that could not be me. I refused to allow that to become me, my life.
That's could I follow up, Damien?
Yeah, please.
I think that's a great point that she made, in that you continuously have realization moments and moments of when you self-reflect and you realize, oh, you know what? I'm actually shedding another layer of skin. You know, that happened for me in my reentry when I was working really dead-end jobs, and I had tried different entrepreneurial endeavors and nothing was working for me. And I think it was because I didn't tap into what I really was passionate about, which is doing this, producing walkies and telling stories of people, of the people that I've been around, and also doing community work. Those are the things I'm passionate about. And I had to really make the decision to say, I'm not even going to pursue a job just to pay bills. I'm going to pursue a career in the field in which I love, I'm passionate about. So yeah, I agree that they continuously happen. I think they probably happen for everyone.
For sure. Well said. Sydia, I wanted to ask you, you're the CEO of Lockdown Love. Can you tell us about that project and the upcoming award ceremony? I know that both Shu and my city council person are both up for awards, so I'm very curious. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So what I've noticed about, so Lockdown Love came because we used to listen in prison. If you've been to prison, you listen to late night music, which is Golden Girl. And she had the show Lockdown Love, and people would send a shout out to him. And it would be like, oh, I want to send a Lockdown Love dedication to this person. But when you come home, people forget that dedication. People forget to show that love and support to the people once they're home. So it's like you still need that reassurance that you're on the right path, and they expect like, oh, you're grown, like get over it, you're doing good, but nobody really pats you on the back. And I feel like people still deserve that, because that encouragement helps to build something even bigger. And then when others see people being given accolades and being encouraged to do better and being awarded for it, it's like, man, I want to be there. I want to be at the next show too. I've been told this literally out of people's mouth when they seen the show, like, hold on, well, I wasn't on there. I mean, what you doing? So it's like, I award these people because, and I cannot wait. When I say I cannot wait to give Shuja his award, because I tailor each award to the person. This is why their bios are so important to me, because I literally read their bio and go through every intricate detail of them so that their award makes sense to who they are, their being. And I just cannot wait to give him his, because it's so amazing, just his achievement and watching his growth, from what I know and what I, see. I'm just excited.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have another question about Lockdown Love, but I think I'm going to wait a minute to ask it. I want to actually ask you something else. So in addition to earning your degree in business management during your incarceration, you also later graduated, I think, if I'm getting this right, valedictorian from your culinary arts class.
Yes.
So my question for you is, what role do you think food can play in reentry?
So I believe that reentry is a passion. So I'm sorry. Reform, you have to have a passion to reform. So if you giving people the platform to do something that they love, the last thing on their mind is committing a crime, because they're doing things that that has substance, and they're providing happiness and different things to people. It's a quality service because now I'm doing this out of love, but now I'm gaining revenue. It gives them something more to look forward to. And that's what it did for me. To set up shop outside of my house, outside of my mother's house at that. I set up shop outside of my mother's house. I went and bought me a deep fryer roll, probably my last couple dollars I had. And I just did, and I started cooking and people got excited. And then I started telling my story to them because it's like, what made you just sit up outside and cook? Like, I need money. I got to pay these bills and I'd rather give it to you guys and help you smile, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no real platform because I don't really want to go use a forklift. I'm like, some females are okay with it, but that's not really what I want to do. I think I look better in the kitchen.
Is
Thank
food
you.
is food still an important part of your life, an important part of what
Absolutely.
you do? Okay.
Forever. I'll never be able to get away from it.
Anything to add about food, Shuj?
That was a great answer, first of all. And
Thank you.
second of all, the food is bomb.
Thank you.
If you have a link or if you have anywhere people can come check out your food, I suggest that before we get off, you make sure you let people know. I stand.
Size Palace. I'll be doing something this weekend too. So.
And I'm going to ask you to make that plug again at the end of the episode as well.
Okay.
Before we move on to another question, I want to take a break and show a clip from the second episode of Walkies. So in this clip, we're going to meet Solo, and he's going to describe the days before his arrest and incarceration. This is a much different clip than the one that we saw a moment ago. So let me just share my screen. All right, this is a clip from episode 2 of Walkies with Solo.
Creditors was trying to take the house, eviction notices on my door. I panicked, didn't know what to do. Both my sisters, my niece and my nephews was living there, so I couldn't let them take the house I grew up in, so I tried to do whatever I needed to do to secure that, as well as my own financial issues I was having with my own family. So I would constantly drive up and down City Line Avenue for days. And I just came to a conclusion, ain't nobody gonna help me out. All right, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna rob a bank. So I drove to City Line Avenue one day with the intentions to do it. I ain't go through it. I said, no, it gotta be something better. A couple days go past, wake up to another eviction notice. All right, it's on.
It's a very powerful clip. Shu, can you take us behind the scenes for a moment and tell us a little bit about your team and the more technical aspects of making Walkies? I know that you introduced us to your team earlier, but take us behind the camera for a minute.
Wow, where do I start? So the first person that I was able to connect with is my editor and the second camera operator, Hunter Bartlett. Actually found him off a Craigslist ad. I was going through my own reentry activation period, and I said, you know what? I'm telling my own stories, you know. And one of the ways, I didn't know who to connect with. I'm not in film. I don't hold the camera. I don't do any of that work. So what I did was I just wrote out a Craigslist ad asking for help. Hunter responded. We met, we worked together on something before Walkies, and we started to form a really cool relationship. And the next person I met was Sean Grasso. One of the things that I realized about myself is I love film, I love storytelling. So I used to go to screenings. We were talking off camera before about some of the screenings I've attended this year. And at the end of one of those screenings, the person who was speaking asked all filmmakers to stand up. And there were a few who stood up, and I wanted to introduce myself to one of them just to kind of tell them what was in my head. And Sean was, he wasn't too far from me. So I introduced myself to Sean. He was very receptive, very friendly. We met for coffee a few weeks after that, maybe a week or two after that. We started to form a relationship. And the last person is the photographer, kind of, he always gives great energy, and that's Keith Lawrence. Keith Lawrence was the roommate of Hunter, who just was behind the scenes watching everything we were doing. And, he was always cheerleading. He was always there to help with other things that we needed. We said, you know what, man, come on. And we've been just moving out ever since. So that's the team. And I think in February of 2019, we met at my apartment at the time, and we really began to work through Walkies, the concept, and scheduling people, and how we can go about creating this, the first season of these stories.
Awesome, thank you. I wanted to ask you as well, Shu, how has COVID changed Walkies, and what have you noticed about how the virus is impacting people coming home?
That's a great question as well. Well, I know, like you gave those statistics in the beginning, more than coming home, I know it's really impacting people who are currently incarcerated. It's changed the landscape of incarceration. It was already very mentally draining. Now people can barely leave the block, that they're housed on. I don't know how familiar people are with how living in prison actually works, but you do get about 3 periods of being outside of your cell and outside of the housing unit that you live on, to just get some air, travel around the prison, and that really helps you mentally. Now, because of COVID, of course, people can barely leave the block, really rarely leave their cell, and communicate with their family, get on the phone, receive mail and stuff like that. So I get calls, and people are really, really mentally drained because of that. So my heart bleeds for them. In terms of filming, I think it slowed everyone down. We had to, because of COVID, we obviously couldn't film in the same way, going to people's houses in the same capacity. But more than anything, because this is all self-financed, we have to spend a lot of times on a 9 to 5 to make sure that we keep the lights on so that we can go out and film. And I think more than COVID, that's been kind of one of our main issues. It's the financing of it.
That's a really fascinating answer. Sydia, I want to ask you the same question. How is COVID impacting the work that you do at Lockdown Love?
Stressing me out. I had a date set for December the 31st because it's like, I mind you, I pushed it back from March 2020. And I finally came up with a date, December the 31st, because everything was opening back up. And then here they like, no, it'll be open the day after. So that was kind of devastating because I really wanted to get the 2020 awards out. Now it's going to run in with the 2021 awards. But nonetheless, I'm going to get it done. That's the reality. It's just more time for people to obtain more greatness and get more awards.
Absolutely. What else is coming up next for you? How can people follow what you're working on?
Okay, so I also sell CMOS and CMOS products. I make soaps and body butters and things of that nature. I'm Size Palace on IG and sizepalace.com. I'm Cy_Moneybags on Instagram. That's my personal page, and I do put all my business on there. But I have a Lockdown Love page on IG and on Facebook, and a Size Palace page on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Awesome. I'm hoping that we can throw some of those links in the chat as well. And Shu, what's next for Walkies? I have more questions, but I just wanted to ask that while it was on my mind. What's coming up next for Walkies?
Well, what's next is the release of the episode 3, Size episode, and we're probably going to have a virtual screening soon. We still have one more segment that we need to film, and then we're in post-production. We're in the editing room, stitching this story together, and we're going to have a screening, and ultimately we want to have a drive-in screening too. So stay tuned. I would advise or push everyone to please go to our website, walkiesfilms.com. That's Walkies, IES, films with plural.com, and you're able to find out more about our episodes. You're able to sign up so that you can be notified once the screening happens. You should be able to contact us as well. If again, a lot of this we're working on the sidelines of our 9 to 5. So if for whatever reason the contact button doesn't work, you can also email me directly at shujamoore@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
And he does answer.
So I want to ask you, Shu, kind of a hypothetical question. If you could interview any guest other than Damien and Sydia, who's currently or formerly incarcerated, who would it be and why?
That's an interesting question, because the reasoning behind Walkies it's twofold. One, it's to motivate people who are currently incarcerated or currently struggling with that activation that we talked about earlier, to motivate them to want to change. And second, it's to teach professionals who have to interact with the formerly incarcerated, just provide them those human stories and have them have a deeper level of understanding of the people that they're dealing with. So, for that, it's not about a person, it's more about the story. And I'm fascinated by learning, stories of everyday people. It doesn't have to be like a celebrity type of person, a regular person who has a very interesting, unique story that we can bring to life and make it, so we can tell it in such a way that a lot of people can connect to it. So I'm more so interested in that and finding more unique stories about how people, got into a life of crime, but more importantly, got out of that life.
That's a good answer. And is there any story or kind of theme or idea that you've been kind of workshopping for future episodes that kind of fits with what you just said?
To motivate, well, yeah, going into episode 4 and 5, it's about success and entrepreneurship, because another thing is people don't really understand that you can be just as successful as anybody else after returning home from prison. So I definitely want to showcase the resiliency that people have returning home. And I want to motivate people who are in the street. I know one of the driving forces for people in a life of crime is they want financial success. They don't know how to achieve it by some of these other means. They feel like they'll be blocked or just can't make it. So I want to highlight those examples of people who push past all the naysayers, all the mental blocks that they may have been having to deal with to push through to that financial success. So that's where we're moving in the next couple episodes.
Awesome. And don't forget momtrepreneurs too, if I can borrow Sydia's term.
Of course. Well, I'm sorry if I missed that.
Before we go to questions for the audience, I want to show the last clip, which is going to be for the upcoming episode of Walkies featuring Sydia. So let me cue this up, and then Sy or Shu, if there's anything that you want to say after the clip, please let us know. But let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly. And this is a clip from upcoming episode 3 of Walkies.
My father put the first gun I ever held in my hand. I was 8 years old. I was 20, committing armed robberies with my significant other. When you're in the midst of all of that stuff, you don't really look at the trauma that you inflict upon other people. Like, that's one of the things I always battle with. Like, damn, like, I really traumatize people. In prison, I went through a program where you have to face everything that you ever been through in life. They asked me the question and nobody ever asked me before. And it was crazy for me to ever say it after all them years, because the reality is nobody ever asked me.
So as soon as I saw that clip, I went to walkiesfilm.com and signed up for the updates because I want to watch the full thing. Of course, the moment that it comes out. Do either of you want to comment on that clip or the episode in general, what that was like? Sydia, I'll start with you. Anything you want to tell us about that?
Shuja's ability. Shuja and the Walkies team ability to capture my story and in the manner that they do is phenomenal. They are like, I don't even know if I could find a word to describe them. I'm excited to see it come out, and I know the story. If that doesn't say enough, I'm excited to watch it, but I do know the story, and it was kind of, they have something very deep in that clip, and people don't really understand it just watching that one part. Mm-hmm. But there's something very, very deep in that one clip that just jerked my heart a lot, and I look forward to watching the entire thing. I'm excited, and I'm grateful to have worked with them, and I can't show more appreciation. I'm honored.
Thank you.
Nice. It's our honor to be able to tell your story. Thank you for being so transparent. And in that clip, yeah, we hint to what I think is at the root of a lot of people who find themselves in prison, which is, a lot of people go to prison they say hurt people hurt people. I think that's true. So you have to watch the episode, to get the full story. But yeah, she's correct that we're hinting at something that's really important when it comes to incarceration.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks to the Walkies team inside for sharing that clip with us. Again, the episode's not out yet, but it will be. And you can go to walkiesfilms.com to sign up for an update about when that episode comes out. I want to start taking questions from the audience, if that's all right. Here's one. Who are the role models that you two have learned from?
That's a good question. I'll follow Sai.
One of my role models is Michelle West. She's incarcerated doing life in prison. I just recently lost a mentor, Al Flowers. He's a community activist and reentry coordinator. I have quite a few people I look to. There's so many. Oh my God. And I can't remember it. I'm like having like a brain fuzz right now.
That's okay. We can circle back if you want.
Okay. Yeah. We want to circle back.
All right. So next question is, I think this one might be best for Shu. Is there a way people can donate to the production costs for Walkies?
Sure. I do want to answer the mentor question because when I went upstate, I spent 2 years in county jail. Then I went upstate at 24 years old. And I was on a mission to educate myself. And I've had many mentors and many people that I've looked up to, starting with my parents. But it was a man named Dennis Campbell who really took me under his wing. And, the rough, ambition and intellect that I had, he made sure that it was fine-tuned and he held me to a very high standard. So I'd like to shout him out at this time, Dennis Campbell. Sure.
Thank you. I'm sorry that I cut you off a moment ago. Apologies for that.
No worries. In terms of donations, I would say, contact us at walkiesfilms.com. Again, you could also follow up at ShujaMoore@gmail.com. And, because we haven't released, we obviously, no, I'm going to say obviously, we will start a crowdfunding campaign at some point. It hasn't got up and running yet, but we definitely, need some cost to keep it going if you think these stories are important to tell. So please follow up with me at those with those things that I just said. And yeah, thank you for your interest. We really appreciate it.
It sounds like there's a lot of interest in the chat and Q&A, so you're probably going to get bombarded with emails from that. Next question is more about programming inside of prison. So this person wants to know, what role did educational programming inside have on your journey on the outside? Did both of you participate in programming inside? If so, what did some of that look like?
I've done everything from real estate classes to business management to I became a program coordinator for activities inside of prison. I've done so many programs in prison. There are a lot, but I was in the federal system. I can only speak on the federal system that I was in. There's a lot, and I reached out. You have to want to be educated, if that makes sense. There's a lot of programs, and some of them you have to find out about. And the only way to find out about them is to communicate with people and do outsourcing. So I did a lot of that. I did a lot of footwork myself. And I had a lot of family and friends who also sent me things. So I was able to program.
Thank you.
Successfully.
Yeah, thanks, Shah, for that answer. For me, I was in the state system, the Department of Corrections in Pennsylvania. The programming there just wasn't of interest to me. It didn't really help me in the ways that I needed to be helped. Again, Dennis Campbell, he put me under, he was a guy that had maybe 15 years in when I met him. He put me under a very rigorous study schedule. I primarily focused on law, but I wanted to learn about the economy, business, society, how to speak, critical thinking, problem solving. I learned all that stuff in there, but that's because, like she said, I wanted it. And I was able to want it because of the resources that I had, my parents. Most people don't have those resources. They're focusing on how to survive in prison, how to make money, stuff like that. So there was a lack of that, and Walkies was created to kind of really be an educational tool that can be used in Department of Corrections. Because another thing is the people who are on the inside, they need to see somebody like themselves to be able to relate to it, to even learn from. So that is one of the goals of Walkies, is to get into penal institutions, reentry programs, juvenile institutions to help teach people.
That is fascinating. That's really awesome. I love to hear that. Thank you. Next question is, how are you adjusting to being home?
So I'll answer all these questions after Sai answers.
Okay. Well, I think I adjusted pretty fairly well. I came home. Continued the program. I went to Connection Training Services, Phil Abundance. I've done. I just continued the work that I already started when I was incarcerated, and I was able to obtain my own living arrangement. Maybe a year later, like 8 months after being out of prison, I was able to get my own place, and I still held 2 jobs, and I just continued the program.
For sure. Thank you.
For me, some of those things, like she talked about, yeah, they were easy to obtain, primarily because I had just a nice support system with my family and my friends and my own ambition. But it's been much more of a tough mental struggle than I had ever anticipated. It's been harder mentally to adjust out here than it was even going in. I can't say that I know why that is. I deal with a lot of anxiety. And I always feel like there's a lot of pressure on me. Now, I am a very ambitious person. I try to accomplish everything in one day. And I think that is part of that is trying to make up for lost time. One thing that I've noticed through telling the Walkies episodes is you have everybody that's trying to do like 5 things at once. And I was on a hike with Sean not too long ago and we talked about this. He was like, yeah, we're trying to, I guess, in some way get back, get to a place where we feel like we should be at. And that may be one of the driving forces for a lot of anxiety that I deal with. And I'm learning how to cope with that.
Yeah, thank you. This next question is kind of philosophical. I think both of you kind of touched on this throughout our program, but I'm going to ask this question. Does the beginnings of change start with changing the mindset, or is it something else?
Always your mindset. I feel like it has to start, well, your heart and your mindset, yeah, but it goes hand in hand. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. That it starts with the mindset. Again, this was why Walkies was created, because of the powerful influence that media can have on people. I know it influenced me as a kid, and I hope that it influences other people in a positive direction. It starts with the mindset.
It's actually a question here about childhood. And since you just mentioned that, I'm going to ask it. The person asked, if you can go back in time and speak to your younger selves, what would you say?
Sheesh. It depends on which younger child I'm speaking to. So if we're talking preteen, I'm going to say listen to your parents, follow the rules. If we're talking teen, I would say be more patient with yourself and your surroundings, and that your circumstances don't define you. Mm-hmm. I would say
We can circle back.
Yeah.
We can circle back. For me, I'm reminded of a story when one day this was when I was a child, a teenager. I was washing dishes in the house, and my dad, I was talking to my parents. It was one of those parent-kid conversations, And my dad was like, man, y'all just lack confidence. I was like, lack confidence? What is he talking about? This dude is crazy. You know, I'm like, I'm getting girls, I'm cool. But it was years later that I pondered on that conversation. And what I realized was that he talked about, what he meant was that we lack confidence to really identify who we really are and stand tall on that and proceed that way. Um, Many people in the streets, you know, they follow along what they see and they don't want to be ostracized as being different. So a lot of times they do things just with trying to follow the crowd. And, you know, he talked about how we lack confidence to say, you know what, I actually don't agree with that. I'm not into that. I want to move this way. And one of the things I like to highlight with people in Walkies, these are stories of people who found that confidence in themselves to be true to themselves. And I like to shine that.
Absolutely. Both great answers. This next question is kind of a piggyback on what you just said, Shuja, and I think this might be a more Walkies question, although, Sai, I'd love to hear your answer. Do you have a favorite story about a person, group, or organization that shared how Walkies has impacted them?
Wow.
I can tell, let me preface this. I can tell by the chat that a lot of people that are watching right now are really moved. And so it sounds like it's having a pretty profound impact on our viewers tonight. So I think this person is asking if anybody in your community or anybody outside of this program that's seen Walkies has had a similarly strong reaction.
I haven't watched it per se with anyone, but my brother, who was Shuja's Walkie, he watched it, and I know he watched the episode, and I feel like it triggered him, and he's just like, now he want to tell his story, like he he got to get out what's, you know, been traumatic for him, and I feel like both of the stories that have been told so far are extremely impactful, and I think they would impact anyone's life, whether you've ever been to prison or not been to prison. The stories, both of them had me in tears, and you know, they're extremely impactful, and I think anybody watching or anybody that wants to be a part, you should. I encourage you to reach out.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. There's no shortage of people who come to us and tell us how empowering and impactful that the stories are. I would say up to this point, the Q&A we had with solos, when we did solo screening, and you know, because Solo's such a big guy, he finally felt comfortable. It was impactful when he finally released a lot of the tension and trauma that he was dealing with and actually cried. You know, I think that affected us all moving forward. Like if we weren't 100% committed already, we knew like just the power behind these stories and why they need to be told. So yes, we a lot of times people, we know, but people let us know that, you know, these stories are just powerful and impact people and you know, open people's eyes to the struggles that people who've been incarcerated are going through.
Absolutely. I really like this next question. What role, if any, has religion played in your re-entry?
One of the places I first started cooking was outside the masjid. I would like pack up my stuff and go take my cooking, my deep fryer and things of that nature to the masjid, and that's actually community. So I'm not going to speak on that. Religion. So when we saying what place does religion had in reentry, I feel like it impacted my entire life. So I can't really just speak per se on reentry. All of my defining moments is through God anyway. You know, like anything I prostrate and pray about is all through God anyway. Anything I set out to do in life is all faith-based regardless. So I can't really pinpoint nothing exact as far as my faith having impacted me for reentry.
Because you're saying it's so present every other moment of your life.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
Shuja?
I would say, faith and belief in the higher power really takes a lot of burden off your shoulders when you're not able to, figure out whether you should move left or right or what the future may hold and you're following your passions. When you have faith, it allows you to move even if the room is dark. So in that way, I think it's been powerful for me.
Awesome. Thank you. And I just want to point out that in the chat, people are already asking how this can be played in places like Philadelphia schools. So how Walkies can be a part of some of our community institutions as well, something that we talked about a moment ago.
Please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
But please follow up at walkiesfilms.com or with my first and last name at gmail.com. That's a goal. That's one of the main goals, is to have it played in school.
Cool. I want to ask another question from the audience. What advice do you have for people who might not be super motivated or lack some support in their lives as well?
I encourage you to reach out to your community. I encourage you, because sometimes some of us be so apprehensive about being told no. You have to be able to accept that and just keep rolling with the punches, because the reality is you're going to get a bunch of no's before you ever get a yes. You're going to get a bunch of deaf ears before someone ever listens to you. You gotta just build yourself up, build that confidence up, and just reach out and say, I need help, or hold my hand, guide me. Everybody needs guidance. None of us can make it in this world without one or two people to help guide you in the right direction. You can't be so apprehensive and so shut out. Reach out to me. I talk to everybody. I ain't lying. I'll talk to anybody and give resources of people. I give resources. I do a bunch for people that I hardly know. Like, I've known them all my life, because I know what it's like to need their help and to have to ask. Sometimes you got to swallow your pride, and it is a disgusting pill. But guess what? When it's all over and said and done, you're going to be excited that you did it, because then you'll end up in such prominent positions as Walkies and being here with Eastern State Penitentiary and things that you never dreamed of. And then now it's like, wow, like I'm really sitting in a room doing something that's impactful, amazing, and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Great answer. When I look back on my own life, before I accomplished anything or really went hard at trying to accomplish a goal, and I was kind of in flux and I was struggling, I became still. I sat still and I really reflected on who I was and what it is that I needed, that I wanted to achieve. And that process can take a while. There's no deadline on that process, and it can get dark too. So it'd be great to make sure that you have a support system, be it a friend, a parent, some type of loved one, or just a therapist, a mental health professional, somebody that you can talk to work through your problems. But also, there's nothing wrong with being still and taking your time. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Well said. Last question I'll ask is Walkies planning a reunion after all of the episodes are done? I imagine that'll be in the very far post-COVID future, but tell us about that.
Right. Well, definitely. We have to, revisit these stories once they're all done. We hope to be completed in 2021, and we would love to have a reunion. Again, it's all dependent on people's interest and wanting to hear these stories, and also fundraising. So I'm glad that someone asked that question, because I know my team and I can say are super motivated and happy to hear these type of questions and this type of interest.
Awesome. Well, before we say goodbye, is there anything else that either of you would like to add or plug anything or tell us where we can learn more or find more or follow you?
I'm Sy_Moneybags on IG. I'm also Sy's Palace on IG. I'm Sydia Bagley on Facebook. And I have Lockdown Love on IG as well. Reach out. Don't be afraid. Sydia Bagley at yahoo.com, at gmail.com. Reach out if you want any more information about the products I sell. Reach out if you need to talk, if you want some guidance with reentry, any of that. I'm here to assist.
Nice. I just say on behalf of the Walkies team, we want to thank Eastern State Penitentiary for allowing us this moment to speak. Thank you, Damon. You've been nothing but gracious for us. I want to thank you, Jackie, in the background, and walkiesfilms.com. I feel like I'm saying it all night, but well, I'll just say the website went live today, so we're hyped. walkiesfilms.com. You know, check us out there, reach out to us, and thanks to everyone for joining us.
Shuja, Sydia, thank you so much for being a part of this program. Thanks to the whole Walkies team, Eastern State CEO Sally Elk, thank you. Our Senior Vice President Sean Kelly, thank you. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. Have a good night.
Good night.
See you guys.